Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello, my dear colleagues. Today, inshallah, we will talk about two templates. The first one is exam matrix template according to course learning outcomes. This exam matrix template is very important. It gives me the mechanism how to write an exam according to the relative weight of the course learning outcomes. First, I have to know the learning outcomes in my course. It consists of three domains. First one is knowledge. Second one is skills. Third one is values. Okay, so my source of information and data will be the course specification. Course specification gives me the learning outcomes of the course, knowledge, skills, values, also the list of topics, the chapters of the course. Okay, first thing, in filling the exam matrix, I have to find the relation between chapters of the course and the learning outcomes. So I can make this from the course specification. Find the relation between the course learning outcomes and the chapters of course or list of topics. All of us deliver course learning outcomes aligned with the course topic, okay, for each course. So we now have the relationship between the course learning outcome and chapters or lessons of the course. We just fill it in this template, in the exam matrix template. For example, in biology course, the K1, the learning outcome or the first learning outcome in the knowledge is aligned with chapter 2 and chapter 3 in the biology course. And also, I will find the relationship between the course learning outcomes of knowledge, course learning outcomes of skills, and also of values. Then I have to know the teaching hours of each course learning outcome. From where I can get these data? Of course, from the course specification. In the course specification, I can know the contact teaching hours for each topic. For example, the first chapter, Introduction to Biology, the teaching hours, the contact teaching hours is 5 hours per week. Okay? Another example for the chapter 2, the contact hours are 15. In the biology course, we have lecture and lab. For each week, the lecture is 3 hours and 2 hours for the lab. So each week I have 3 hours. For example, here K1 learning outcome aligned with chapter 2 and chapter 3 in the course. So I have 20 hours, 15 plus 5. But these 20 hours are for the lecture and lab. I want just the lecture. So H5 will be 3 hours for the lecture. So the 20 hours will be 12 hours through 4 weeks. Each week, 3 hours. What about the 8 hours? They are for the lab course. By this way, I will get the teaching hours for each course learning outcome. So here for the K1, I have 12, K2, 15, K3, 18 hours. Summation of these hours are 45 hours. Okay, so the biology are from 100 mark. But not all this course learning outcome are represented for the 100 mark. I have the knowledge learning outcomes represented by 80 mark. What about the 20? 10 mark for the lab course, and this represented by the course learning outcomes of skills. The skills that the students are acquired through studying the lab course. Also the other 10, they are for the value. We have value about the teamwork and group work. So I cannot measure this value by examination. The examination just measure the knowledge, skills, and values of the individual student. So we can measure or evaluate this value by the student's participation. Maybe by the assignment, group working for assignment, for example. Okay, so I have 80 mark that will be measured by the course learning outcome of knowledge. I have to get the relative weight for each course learning outcome. Okay, this will be from the equation from the second paper. LO relative weight or learning outcome relative weight, it will be equal learning outcome teaching hours divided by total course teaching hours. So here I will divide for K1 12 hours divided by the total 45 hours. I will get 0.266. Okay, so by this way, by this equation, I will get the relative weight of the K1. By the same method, 15 divided by 45, I will get 0.333, which is the relative weight of K2, also 0.4 relative weight for K3. Then this column is represent LO marks. What the marks that represent this learning outcome? How many questions that I will put in the exam to evaluate, to measure this course learning outcome? Also, I can measure this, I can calculate this from the second paper, from the second equation. LO marks equal learning outcome relative weight times total course marks. So here the learning outcome relative weight is 0.266 times 80, which is the total course mark. it will be about 21.33. Of course, when I'm going to write questions for the exam, it will be hard to make it with 21.33, so I will choose it as 21 mark. So the first learning outcome will be represented in the exam by 21 marks. By this way, I will calculate the marks of Key 2 learning outcome, Key 3 learning outcome. Here for Key 2, 15, it will be the relative weight 0.33 times 80 . It will be about 26.64, about 27 mark, okay? And also for Key 3, it will be 32. So I divided the 80 mark for all the learning outcomes. After this learning outcome, the K1 is represented by 21 mark. I want to evaluate these marks in the different assessment methods. So I have to divide this 21 mark for the different assessment method, which are homework plus quizzes, midterm exam, final exam. And maybe in other courses you have different assessment method also, like assignment, for example, okay, participation, any assessment method. So the 21 will be divided, for example, for the homework and the quiz 3 mark, for the midterm 8 marks, for the final exam 10 marks. How I am going to divide the learning outcome marks? It depends on the marks bulk of each assessment method. Like final exam, it's bulk mark about 50. Midterm, it is 20, for example. Homework and the quiz, it is 10. So it is logic for final exam, I will put a higher mark. Midterm, it will be less than the final exam. Homework and the quiz, it will be less than the midterm. This is not the only standard. There is another standard that the distribution of the learning outcome mark depend on. What this standard? It is the time plan or timetable of your teaching plan. Okay? If you are going to teach, for example, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10, chapter 11, after the end of midterm exam. So these chapters will not be included in the midterm. Okay, for example. So just I will include chapter 1 here. It is 2 mark, for example. Okay, so we have two standards. We are depending on when we are going to distribute the learning outcome marks on the different assessment method. The first one, it is the bulk, how much this assessment method is represented for the course by marks. And the second standard, it is the timetable of your teaching plan. After this, I have another 20 marks, 10 marks for the lab. Okay. The total teaching hour for the lab, it is 2 hours per week. For 15 weeks, 13 hours. And it is evaluated by 10 marks for the lab homework, or by the lab homework. Okay. The last 10 marks is for the student participation, and it is measure or evaluate the teamwork or group working for the student. by the students' participation. At the end of this template, I get to know how I am going to write my exam, what the questions which represent each course learning outcome, and how much each course learning outcome represent by marks out of 100, I think, in all the courses. After we finish this template, we will take it also as a source for the second template. Okay, by the end of this template, so I have to know how to write an exam according to the relative weight for each course learning outcome. This template now is going to measure the achievement for a certain section of student of the degree of course learning outcome, and also the percentage of course learning outcome. In this table, to here, I just have a fixed information from the previous table. I have the course learning outcomes, the aligned chapters or lessons of the course, the learning outcome marks, and here I have something new, which is learning outcome target, the percentage. How I am going to calculate this percentage? I will just divide each learning outcome mark by the total course mark times 100. So it will be the percentage of this learning outcome to the total marks of the course. So I have learning outcome target percentage for K1, it will be 26.25. Also for the K2, 33.75%, and for K3 it is 40%. Here I have the homework and the quiz, the mark of K1 in the homework and the quiz, the mark of K1 for midterm 8 marks, for final exam 10 marks, and also the distribution of K2 marks on the different assessment method. Finally, the distribution of K3 marks on the different assessment method. For the percentage, the learning outcome target percentage, I have the equation here in page 2. It's equal learning outcome mark divided by total course mark times 100. Here I am going to calculate the K1 achievement or the course learning outcome achievement, and it is a mark. It is equal learning outcome mark in assessment method, certain assessment method, divided by the total mark of this assessment method times average mark of section. Okay, how I am going to get this average mark of section? I have to sign in the Blackboard. After sign in to the Blackboard, I am going to a certain section. Then I will choose Grade Center, then Full Grade Center. After this, I will have a list of the section students. Also, number of columns represent the marks of the students in different assessment methods. For example, here in the midterm exam, I will choose column statistics. After I choose column statistics, I will have some data. Okay, between them I will choose the average. Okay, I will take this average. So this represents the average of students' marks in this section for the midterm exam. From here, without going back, I can transfer from assessment method to another assessment method from these arrows. Okay, this is for participation. Here, this is the average of participation. Lab homework. Also here, the average of lab homework. This is the final exam, for example. This is the average of final exam, and so on. For any section, I want to get the average of students' mark. After this, I get all the average for every section that I have. Here, the average for section 2297, for example, for the different assessment method. For homework and assignment, the average was 10. For students' participation, average was 10. Homework, lab homework, the average was 9.88. Midterm exam, average 13.38. Final exam, average was 37.1. So I get here the average for the different assessment methods. I want to know the achievement of learning outcome for homework and quiz, achievement of learning outcome for midterm, achievement of learning outcome for final exam. I can calculate this from the equation in page 4. For example, key 1 achievement will equal learning outcome mark divided by total mark for this assessment method times average mark of section. For example, here, for the homework and the quiz, the mark is 3, and the mark of homework and the quiz, the total mark, it is 10. So I am going to divide 3 by 10, which is the total mark of homework and the quiz assessment method times the average, which is 10. So it will be 3. Also here for K2, 6, which is the mark of K2 divided by 10, the total mark of this assessment method, times 10, which is the average, it will be 6. For K3 also it will be 1. Okay, for the midterm exam, we have here 8, which is the mark of the K1 in the midterm exam, divided by 20, which is the total mark of this assessment method, times the average, which is 13.38. It will be about 5.35. For example, if there is 8 marks represent the K1 in the midterm, so the students of this section achieved from the 8 5.35 out of 8. This meaning the achievement of learning outcome in the midterm for K1. By the same way, we are going to calculate K2 for midterm, which is 10 divided by total mark, which is 20, times the average mark, which is 13.38. It will be 6.69, about 6.7. So the student achieved 6.7 in the midterm for K2 out of 10 marks. By the same way, I am going to calculate K3 in the midterm, which is equal 1. And the students also achieved 1 out of 2 for K3 in the midterm exam. By the same way, we are going to calculate learning outcome achievement for final exam. For example, K1, it is 10 mark divided by total mark of this assessment method, which is 50, times the average for the final exam, which is 37.1. Will equal 7.42. By the same way, these students achieve 7.42 out of 10 for K1 in the final exam. For K2, it is 11. It will be 11 divided by 50 times 37.1. It will be equal 8.2. Also, for the K3 in the final exam, it will be 29 divided by 50 times 37.1, and it will be equal 21.5. So the students in K3 for the final exam achieved 21.5 marks out of 29 marks. I am going to add or make a summation for all the learning outcomes or all the assessment method for the learning outcome K1. It will be 3 plus 5.35 plus 7.42 will equal 15.8. Also 6 plus 6.7 plus 8.2, it will equal 21.1. For K3, it will be 1 plus 1.34 plus 21.5, it will equal 23.9. So this is the total achievement. Total achievement for K1, total achievement for K2, total achievement for K3. When I get the total achievement, I have to get the final thing, the final data, which is the learning outcome percentage. How can I calculate the percentage? For example, K1 percentage equal K1 achievement divided by total course mark times 100. So here, when you get the total learning outcome, which is 15.8, you are going to divide it by 21 times 100. So here the percentage of the achievement for the students of this section will be 75.2%. By the same way, I have to calculate the learning outcome percentage for K2 and for K3. Here, I have in the lab homework, the target is 10 and the achieved, which is the average of marks in the lab homework was 9.9. Okay, I'm going to divide 9.9 over 10 times 100. So the percentage of achievement will be 99%. Here also for the student participation, the target is 10, the total mark is 10, okay, and the average also is 10. So the students achieved 100% for this assessment method. When I'm going to calculate the achieved mark of the total course, it will be equal 80.7 out of 100. So the percentage, the total percentage for all the course learning outcomes, it will be 80.7%. Last thing, when we finish filling the second template, the template of learning outcome achievement and the percentage, okay, we are going to use these data in the course report, where we are going to use these data in the